Welcome to the deep dive. So, today we're taking a fascinating plunge, really, into the world of a poet named Mitch Ditkoff.
Yeah, a listener sent us this really interesting PDF. It's packed with his stuff, reflections on his own poetry, an article about why he quit poetry grad school.
Which sounds like quite a story.
Definitely. And even like this whimsical piece imagining Rumi and Kabir bowling.
Bowling.
Okay.
So our mission here is what? To kind of get the essence of his poetry, understand where he's coming from.
Exactly. See what inspires him and maybe, uncover some surprising bits about the poetic life along the way.
All right. Now, the person who put this PDF together, they haven't actually met Ditkoff, despite this long connection.
Right. It seems they know him through a mutual friend and his website, The Unspoken Word. But yeah, never met in person.
But they clearly feel a strong connection. They described reading his work as like being in a magical candy store.
Yeah, they used words like resonant and even sublime. So, high praise. Makes you curious.
And this wasn't just online admiration. They mentioned joining a Zoom gathering he led called Poetry of Life.
Described it as pure medicine for the soul. Said it turned the ordinary into something almost sacred.
Okay, let's pause on that word they used, sublime. Can you unpack that a bit? What does that really mean, especially with poetry?
Sure. So the sublime, it's basically about greatness. Something so vast or powerful, it kind of exceeds our usual grasp, It inspires awe, maybe even feels a bit overwhelming.
Like standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon or something?
Exactly like that. Or thinking about the universe, that sense of something immense, powerful, maybe even a little terrifying, but definitely awe-inspiring.
So how does Ditkoff's poetry connect to that feeling? Why sublime?
Well, according to the compiler, Ditkoff is trying to capture these, let's say, transcendent moments. And a lot of it seems drawn from his spiritual path. He's been a student of Prem Rawat for, over 50 years.
Wow, okay.
But what's interesting is how he finds these big, sublime feelings, not just in huge events, but kind of woven into everyday stuff like love or longing, or even just letting things go.
Okay, so it's not all abstract theory. Are there specific themes or images, maybe, that create this feeling?
Oh, absolutely. The notes point to recurring images, things like fire in the belly, you get that sense of passion, drive, or light in the heart, maybe inner peace or joy. He uses metaphors like the moon at sunrise, this vast ocean of love. But importantly, it's not all blissed out. He includes the challenges too, the doubts, the fears.
Right, the human stuff.
Exactly. And maybe it's that contrast, the everyday struggle against these bigger, almost cosmic feelings where that sense of the sublime really comes through.
Gotcha. Okay, so then the PDF does something, well, pretty 21st century. It brings in ChatGPT.
Yeah, it includes an AI analysis of Ditkoff's poetry, presented as, an unbiased take.
So what did the AI pick up on? What was its assessment?
Well, interestingly, ChatGPT called his poetry accessible and relatable, which kind of echoes that magical candy store vibe, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Suggests it's not too difficult or academic, even if it hits deep themes.
Right. The AI noted themes of love, spirituality, the sort of universal human things we all grapple with.
And what about his style? Did ChatGPT identify anything specific there?
It did. It described his style as straightforward, unpretentious, using simple language, vivid images.
So easy to connect with.
Seems so. The AI also mentioned a conversational tone, use of free verse, which makes it feel more immediate, maybe less formal, like he's just talking to you.
Okay. And where does ChatGPT think he gets his inspiration, his source material for all this?
According to the AI, it's pretty diverse. Life experiences, obviously, observations of the world, his spiritual practice, meditation, contemplation.
Makes sense.
But also other poets, nature, and even his day job, he works as a creativity consultant. So it sounds like he's drawing from, well, everywhere, life itself.
The AI even looked at his book title, Unspoken Word, Love Longing and Letting Go. What was its take on that?
It was surprisingly insightful, actually. It saw unspoken word as being about those deep emotions, the ones hard to articulate that need, reflection, love longing, pretty clear, that yearning for connection, and letting go. It linked that to release, accepting loss, personal growth, captures the core themes quite well, I thought.
Okay, then there was a slightly funny question put to the AI about dandruff.
Slight chuckle. Right. Will reading Mitch Ditkoff's poetry cure my dandruff?
And the answer was?
Predictably logical.
Oh.
ChatGPT said, well, poetry can help you relax, reduce stress, right? And stress can sometimes affect conditions like dandruff.
Ah, the indirect effects.
Exactly. But no, it's not a direct cure for a physical thing like dandruff. Good reminder to keep things in perspective.
Definitely. So boiling it down, why should someone read Ditkoff according to the AI? What's the main appeal?
The AI listed a few things. That his poetry can be insightful, thought-provoking, make you see things differently, that it's inspiring, relatable, offers a way to explore the human experience that feels, I guess, both uplifting and maybe calming. A source of comfort, maybe even guidance.
Now, the comparisons section was interesting too. ChatGPT compared Ditkoff to Rumi. It's quite a comparison.
It is. But the AI found some common ground. Both explore love, spirituality, the human condition, obviously.
And how they do it.
Both use metaphor and symbolism a lot. Ditkoff maybe more with nature imagery, Rumi famously using the beloved as a symbol for the divine. But there's a shared focus on connection, the power of love, and this sort of contemplative quality.
Okay, that makes sense. But then feta cheese.
Yeah.
Explain the feta cheese comparison.
Chuckles. Yeah, that one definitely stands out. It's memorable. I'll give it that.
So what was the logic?
The AI likened Ditkoff's poetry to feta cheese because both have a very distinct, recognizable style or flavor. Unique sets them apart.
Okay, I'm sort of following it.
And it also suggested that just like feta works in lots of different dishes, for different people, Ditkoff's poetry might appeal to a wide audience, with different tastes.
Huh. It's whimsical, but I guess I see the point about distinctiveness and broad appeal. Maybe.
That's certainly a conversation starter.
No kidding. Okay, shifting to more practical, almost absurd questions the AI was asked, like, will reading Ditkoff make me live forever?
The chuckles. Yeah, the big one. And ChatGPT's answer was predictably, unfortunately, no. Poetry enriches life, sure, but immortality, not part of the deal.
Right. What about being stranded on a desert island? Should you pack his poems?
The AI was pretty balanced. Look, if you like his poetry, it could be great for comfort, entertainment, keeping your spirits up. But maybe find water and build a shelter first. Essentials before existential comfort. Pretty sensible.
Sensible AI. Okay, then there were these two very specific hypothetical readers, Ditkoff's fictional first wife and a hermit in a Himalayan cave. Any advice for them?
Yeah, for the fictional ex-wife, the advice was basically approach it with an open mind. Try to set aside personal history and figure out why you're curious now. Explore your own reasons.
And for the cave dweller?
Similarly practical. If poetry brings you joy and you've got the mental space for it in your solitary life, sure, why not? Could be valuable. But again, it's about personal interest and need.
The connection with Prem Rawat, his teacher, also came up. Did ChatGPT see a direct link in the poetry itself?
It clarified there wasn't like a direct collaboration on the poetry, but it did note a shared interest exploring human experience, personal growth, creativity. So more of a philosophical resonance maybe than a direct influence on the poems themselves.
Got it. And the last question in that section was quite poignant. Reading his poetry on one's deathbed.
And ChatGPT's response was very humane, I thought. It really emphasized personal choice.
Meaning,
if reading his poems brings you comfort, joy, peace, a feeling of connection in those final moments, then absolutely it makes sense. It's about what feels right and meaningful to the individual.
that feels like a good perspective.
Okay.
Let's completely switch gears now. This piece in the PDF. Rumi and Kabir bowling. Tell me about this.
This is just delightful. It's Ditkoff being playful, imaginative. He takes these revered spiritual figures, Rumi and Kabir, and plunks them down in a bowling alley late at night.
Doing what? Just hanging out?
No, they're bowling. Laughing, drinking. I think it mentions a red eye and a Bud Light. It completely messes with the typical image we have of these ancient mystics.
Humanizes them, maybe.
Totally. Shows a side of joy, connection, just ordinary fun that transcends time or spiritual status.
And there's this key moment with the bowling alley attendant.
Yes. The attendant says they're closing, time to go. And Rumi just launches into this incredibly poetic response, saying the place is actually wide open.
So...
He uses this cascade of metaphors, the Red Sea parting, a window on a summer night, young love, an open book, the sky, an open heart. Just beautiful imagery conveying this sense of limitless possibility, connection that can't be shut down by closing time.
Wow. That's poetry right there in the dialogue.
Exactly. It's about the spirit being boundless.
And what happens at the end? Does the connection continue?
Well, their lane suddenly flashes a perfect game announcement. And then Rumi and Kabir invite the attendant, who's probably completely baffled, to join them for a drink.
Extending the moment.
Yeah, sharing the joy, keeping that connection going. It's just a charming, thought-provoking little piece.
Okay, one last major piece from the PDF. Ditkoff's article. Why I Quit Poetry Graduate School When I Was 22. This sounds significant.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like a defining moment. And he frames it not as rejecting poetry itself, but choosing a different way to poetry. The poetry of life, lived directly.
How did he get there? What happened?
He describes being young, full of existential questions, and observing his professors at a party. They were, established poets, academics.
And he asked them something specific.
He did. A simple but really revealing question. If you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be?
And their answers.
Every single one of them named somewhere else. Baja, Guatemala, the Pacific Northwest. None of them wanted to be right there at that party in their lives at that moment.
And that hit him hard.
Yeah, it sparked this big realization for him. He saw his mentors, people he might aspire to be like, essentially wishing they were elsewhere, always longing for something different.
And he didn't want that for himself.
Exactly. He didn't want to end up living a life where he was always yearning to escape it. Being present, embracing the now, seemed suddenly much more important. Like, that was the real poetry.
So what happened next? Did he just walk out?
Well, the timing is almost comically ironic. The very next Monday, his professor pulls him aside and tells him the faculty decided to offer him a full teaching scholarship. The dream opportunity, right?
Wow. Talk about a crossroads.
Absolutely. But his conviction was so strong, apparently his immediate response was just, I quit. He said something like his education needed to happen somewhere else outside of academia.
And that's what he did. He left.
Yep. Went off to Cambridge, decided to live the life, read, write, engage with the world directly, rather than just study it from a distance.
Choosing experience over the traditional path.
Precisely. Living the poetry instead of just analyzing it. It's a powerful choice.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Ditkoff's poetry, the sublime, the AI's take, Rumi bowling, quitting grad school. What are the big takeaways for you pulling it all together?
For me, it's that blend. He seems to merge the everyday with the sublime. Finding deep meaning in love, longing, letting go, but also having this playful side.
Like the bowling.
Exactly. And it all feels very integrated. His spiritual life, his observations, his humor, it feeds the poetry. And that grad school story that really emphasizes finding your own path, right? Valuing direct experience.
Yeah, that really stood out to me too. The courage, I guess, to trust your own insight, even when it goes against the grain, against what looks like a golden opportunity.
And there's this thread of connection running through it all. Whether it's the longing in the poems or Rumi inviting the attendant for a drink, that desire for shared experience, for meaning.
It really comes through. So that brings us to a final thought, maybe for you listening.
Yeah, think about your own life for a moment. Has there been a time when you maybe chose an unconventional path? Or had a sudden realization about what you truly wanted, like Ditkoff did at that party?
How does his experience resonate, if at all? And maybe more broadly, what does it mean for you personally to live the poetry of life?
Something to think about as you go about your day.